She was cleaning his office late night until the billionaire walked in and saw her crying. It was long past midnight when Maria finally dropped her mop into the bucket. The office was silent, the kind of silence that pressed against your ears. Outside, the city lights glimmered like stars that had fallen to the streets. But in here, only the faint hum of the air conditioner and the sound of her tired breaths filled the space. She'd been cleaning this building for almost 7 years. 7 years of polishing the floors that others walked on, scrubbing desks that belonged to people whose names she'd never know. She wasn't bitter. Life hadn't given her many choices. After her husband died in a factory accident, she had to find a way to raise her son alone. The bills never waited, and the world didn't slow down for anyone's grief. That night, she was finishing the top floor, the one reserved for the company's executives. The glass doors shimmered with the engraved logo, Ellison Group Holdings. She'd never met the owner, but she knew of him. Everyone did. Ethan Ellison, billionaire, philanthropist, a man whose name appeared in magazines and whose photo hung in the lobby beside words like visionary and leader. Maria often wondered what kind of man he was, if he ever noticed the people who cleaned his world after hours. She doubted it. Men like him lived in a different universe. As she bent down to wipe a stain off the marble floor, her eyes caught something shiny beneath one of the desks, a small silver frame. She picked it up and brushed off the dust. Inside was a picture of a smiling woman and a little boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. The woman's eyes had the same warmth Maria once saw in her own reflection, before life had drained the color from it. For a moment, she just stood there, staring. The boy's smile reminded her of her son, Luis, who was probably asleep at home with his textbook still open on the table. The memory stung her chest. She pressed the photo gently to her heart and whispered, "He's going to make it too." And then it happened. She broke. The tears she'd been holding back all week spilled out quietly. She sank into the office chair, clutching the photo as sobs shook her shoulders. She didn't hear the elevator open, didn't notice the sound of polished shoes crossing the floor. "Are you all right?" The voice was low, calm, and unexpectedly gentle. She turned sharply, wiping her face, and froze. Standing a few steps away was Ethan Ellison himself. Tall, sharply dressed, his face calm, but his eyes surprised. "I'm sorry," she stammered, getting up quickly. "I didn't mean to. I was just finishing." "It's all right," he said quietly, his tone soft but curious. "You work here, right?" She nodded quickly, embarrassed. "Yes, sir. Night shift. I was just cleaning." His gaze fell on the photo in her hand. "That's my wife and son," he said. His voice dropped slightly, distant. "She passed away 3 years ago." Maria froze, her breath catching. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. He nodded slowly, taking the frame from her hands. "I keep it there so I can see them every morning. But I haven't been here in weeks." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavy, not uncomfortable, just human. Two souls quietly acknowledging each other's pain. "You were crying," he said finally, not as an accusation, but as a simple truth. Maria looked down, ashamed. "It's nothing, sir. My son's college application got rejected today. He worked so hard, and I didn't know how to tell him that maybe we just can't afford the kind of life he dreams about." She stopped herself, shaking her head. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear my problems." But Ethan didn't move. His eyes softened. "You've been working here long?" 7 years, she said quietly. "Mostly nights. I clean the top floors after everyone's gone. Pays better that way." He leaned against the edge of the desk, still watching her. "Do you ever take a break?" She smiled faintly. "Single mothers don't get breaks, sir." Something in that sentence hit him deeper than she realized. For the first time in a long time, he saw his own reflection not in the mirror of success, but in someone's struggle. His wife used to say the same thing, that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just shows up every morning. He looked around the office, spotless, shining, and then back at her. "You know," he said quietly, "I built this company from nothing. My father was a mechanic. I used to sweep floors just like you. Maybe not as hard, but close enough. Maria looked up, surprised. You? He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. Life gives some of us a head start, but for others, it's a climb. The thing is, the view doesn't matter if you forget who helped build the steps. She didn't know what to say. There was something in his tone. Not pity, not charity, but respect. He glanced at the clock, then back at her. Do you still have your son's application? She blinked. Yes, it's at home. Why? He thought for a moment, then said quietly, Bring it tomorrow night. I'd like to see it. Her eyes widened. Sir, I didn't mean... He raised a hand gently. You didn't ask for anything, but sometimes the right people are just waiting to be noticed. Before she could respond, he gave a small nod and started toward the elevator. Go home, Maria. Your son has a mother who hasn't given up on him. That's already more than most people ever get. When the doors closed behind him, she stood there frozen, unsure if what just happened was real. She looked at the photo in her hand again, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. That night, as she walked home under the streetlights, she whispered into the cool air, Maybe. Things can still change. And though she didn't know it yet, that single encounter was about to change not just her son's future, but Ethan Ellison's heart as well. Maria didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, the city humming softly beyond the glass, her son's college papers spread across the small table. Luis stirred in his room, still wearing his school uniform, asleep over his books again. She smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. He had his father's eyes, kind, curious, stubborn in the best way. In the morning, when he asked why her eyes looked tired, she just said she'd been thinking about dreams, and how sometimes, even when they seem far away, life has a way of surprising us. The next evening, she carried the folder with trembling hands to the top floor. Her reflection stared back at her in the polished glass doors. The office was empty, quiet as always. For a moment, she wondered if maybe he hadn't meant it. Maybe he'd forgotten, like people in his world often forgot the ones below them. But as the clock struck 10, the elevator chimed softly. Ethan stepped out, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, a gentle smile on his face. You came, he said simply. Maria nodded, holding out the folder. It's all he's worked for, engineering. He wants to build things like his father used to. He took the papers carefully, flipping through the forms and essays. As he read, his expression shifted, focused, thoughtful. When he reached the personal statement, he paused. Did he write this himself? Maria nodded proudly. Every word. Ethan read aloud, his voice soft but steady. My father taught me that real strength is not in what you build, but in what you never stop believing in, even when no one else does. He looked up, eyes glinting. That's powerful. Maria smiled shyly. He's always been that kind of boy. Dreaming big, even when we could barely afford new shoes. Ethan leaned back, the words sitting heavily in his mind. He'd spent years surrounded by people chasing profit, not purpose. But here, in the middle of the night, holding a paper written by a boy he'd never met, he felt something shift, something he hadn't felt since before his wife passed. He closed the folder gently. Does he know you're doing all this for him? Maria looked down. He knows I clean offices. I don't think he knows that I clean this one. Ethan smiled faintly. You remind me of someone, he said after a pause. My wife. She used to tell me, Ethan, never measure a person by what they do, but by what they give. I forgot that for a while. He stood, walked to his desk, and picked up the phone. I have a friend who runs a scholarship foundation. If your son's as bright as this essay shows, I'll make sure he gets another shot. No promises, just possibilities. Maria's eyes widened, tears already forming. I don't know how to thank you. You already did, he interrupted gently. You reminded me what matters. She stood there for a moment, speechless. The man in front of her wasn't the face from the magazines. He wasn't the billionaire everyone admired from afar. He was just a man One who had known loss, one who had once forgotten how to care, and who was now learning again. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't know what this means." He smiled softly. "I think I do." Weeks passed. Maria kept working her shifts, but everything felt different. She moved through the halls lighter, her heart no longer carrying only worry, but hope. Every few days, she'd find small notes left on her cart. "Thank you for what you do. You make this place better." No name, just kindness. But she knew who it was. Then, one morning, an envelope arrived at her apartment. The letterhead bore the seal of Ellison Group's Educational Foundation. She unfolded it with shaking hands. "Dear Mr. Luis Alvarez, we are pleased to inform you that you have been awarded a full academic scholarship to the University of Hartford's engineering program." She didn't make it to the second paragraph before tears blurred the ink. Luis came running from his room, confused until he saw the paper in her hands. "Mom, what?" She threw her arms around him, laughing and crying all at once. "You did it, mijo. You're going to college." He looked stunned, then grinned through tears. "But how?" "I thought." "Someone believed in you," she said softly. "Someone saw what I've always seen." Later that week, Maria went back to the office, letter in hand. Ethan wasn't there, but she found a small envelope waiting on his desk, addressed to her. Inside was a single note in neat handwriting. "Maria, thank you for reminding me that wealth isn't measured in numbers, but in hearts you've helped heal. Your strength gave me back my purpose. Congratulations to you both. A.E." She pressed the note to her chest, eyes glistening. The same night, she placed it beside her husband's photo at home. "He would have liked him," she whispered with a smile. Months passed. Luis left for college, promising to make her proud. Ethan, too, changed quietly. He started visiting the company at night more often, walking the halls Maria once cleaned alone. Sometimes he'd stop and talk to the janitors, security guards, the people no one noticed. The man who once built empires began rebuilding people instead. One evening, as he stood by his office window watching the city lights, his assistant entered. "Sir, the new employee policy updates. You wanted to approve them." He nodded. "Yes, and add this. Every part-time worker gets education support for their children. No exceptions." The assistant blinked. "That's generous." He smiled faintly. "No, it's overdue." When the assistant left, Ethan sat down at his desk. The photo of his wife and son still sat beside him. He touched the frame gently and whispered, "You'd be proud." Outside, the cleaning crew began their rounds. He looked out through the glass walls and spotted Maria, now supervising new hires. She glanced up, caught his eye, and smiled. It was a small exchange, but one that carried the weight of everything they'd been through. Grief, struggle, kindness, and renewal. In that moment, Ethan realized something profound. Sometimes the people who sweep the floors hold more light than those who sit in the corner offices. He turned back to his window, the city glowing like a sea of quiet stars, and for the first time in years, he felt whole again, because sometimes you don't need to fall in love to be saved. Sometimes all it takes is one person who looks your way and truly sees you.